Radnor Township Historic and Architectural Review Board meeting for Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. First order of business is the call to order. Second order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next order of business is new business. Harb 20-2118, 201 Walnut Avenue. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to give some basic background on this property. According to Radnor Township records, they say it is a contributing property. It was built 1885 to 1889. The architect was Price Brothers. The builder was Wendell and Smith. Radnor Historical Society's Historic Resource Survey says the historic name of this house is a round end house. It was built circa 1889 to 1890. The architect was Price Brothers. The builders were Wendell and Smith. According to Delaware County, PA property records, they say the total square footage of the building area is 4,894 square feet living. It was built in 1895. The construction is stone. The exterior walls are siding, aluminum, and vinyl. Okay, just have a couple of maps here I want to share, considering this is going to be a new garage. On a circa 1892 map of Wayne by E.W. Smith and Company, there were no outbuildings on this property. On a 1893 map of Wayne by A.H. Mueller, there were no outbuildings on this property. On a Wayne and St. David's houses and land for sale, the Wayne Estate map of 1905 lists no outbuildings at this property. Again, for this case, it is a new garage. Please introduce yourself and share your plans with us.
Does that go up? Ah, perfect. Okay. So, oh, yeah.
Would like that? Let me just put, you can turn it on and off here. Okay. There you go. That will help.
Okay. Well, my name is Jim Bradbury, James Bradbury Architects in Philadelphia, and I'm here with Ian Hartman. Mr. Hartman and his wife Julie are the owners of the property. They've been there for 8 years, 7 or 8 years? 6 years now, with their family. We were before the Harb back in 15. So the pictures you're going to see today of the existing house are the renovations that we did back then. Bob, you referred to aluminum vinyl. There's no more aluminum or vinyl on the house. I mean, I know that's just a record. So back then, we redid all the windows. We did an addition, all new roof. The Hardy, now it's all Hardy siding, restored porches, restored everything. I'll show you that in just a second, but that's not why we're here tonight. Now we're proposing to build a garage, a two-car garage on the property. And what was the last date you said when there was nothing, no outbuildings? Did you say 1905?
1905.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is an existing two-car garage. This plan is north is oriented to the left-hand side. So it's on the, that would be on the north-west corner. And in fact,
you intend to demolish that garage?
We probably would after the construction, yes. Okay. And Walnut is on your right. Woodland Avenue, which is the the lesser traveled street, is on the side there. If you were to look at a satellite view, and actually I'll show you that in a second. It's in the packet. There are 4 of these little garages that are kind of across from one another. The Hartman's property, their neighbor across Woodland, a property up on Beach Street. No, not Beach Street. The Guillaume's house is. Anyway, there are 4 of them that are just little bitty one-story sheds, probably built I'm guessing around 1920-ish, you know, when people started getting cars, and the houses have been built before that. So, but we're proposing to build a new garage closer to the house. The reason we're here, obviously, we have to come before Harb, but I should just mention, I don't think we put that in the packet, we would have to get a zoning variance for this garage because it's a corner property. There are 2 front yard setbacks. So there's 2 40-foot setbacks along Walnut and along Woodland. The existing house is non-conforming. The front of the house and the side of the house are in the 40-yard setback, and we're actually coming, you know, closer on the Woodland side than the zoning code will allow. But
So
it was suggested.
you haven't went before? the
We have
zoning
not,
board yet?
and Mr. Kachansky, Kevin, suggested that we come to you all first because he didn't want us to go to the zoning hearing board and get the lead, because first of all, that's more costly with lawyers and all that biz. Get all of that squared away and then come to you guys and you not like it. So he made the suggestion we come to you first, get your blessing. Now, obviously, I can't speak for you all and how you approve things, but I would assume if you were to approve us, it would be contingent upon obviously getting the zoning variance.
I'm assuming that's the case. Is that correct, Andy? Yep. Okay.
I understand. Okay, recommend. Yes, I apologize. Okay. Okay, so the site plan here, what you're seeing in black or gray is the existing property survey, and then what's in red are the existing house, and Bob, you mentioned the round, you know, the round end house. That's the stone part with the big chimney. The porch is on the right-hand side. And then the garage that we're proposing is approximately 26 feet by 25 feet. So it's, you know, it's a fairly small footprint. We are proposing to connect it to, there is an existing set of stairs that comes up there and run a kind of a breezeway or loggia around the back side of the garage connecting to the stairway. And I'll show you that in just a second in the elevations in the SketchUp model. And the entrance would be obviously off of Woodland. The house is about 14 feet from the garage is about 14 feet from the curb line. And as you already mentioned, Bob, the proposal would be that garage and all of those little garages around North Wayne there, not all of them, but most of them were built on what architects call rat slabs. They're just concrete with no reinforcing in it. The building's doing this, and they don't even fit today's cars, just the way, you know, the sizes back then. I think that garage is about 15 by 15 or something like that, so you couldn't even get the car in it.
Yeah, I would like to just share some things that I found when I was reviewing these old maps.
Sure.
And why there weren't so many outbuildings when a lot of the houses were built in the historic districts. Like, there were some stables, but not as many as I thought there would be, you know, during the horse and buggy era. And so what I saw on a lot of these old maps were a lot of these houses, and when they were built, there were several livery stables that were located in Wayne and looked like 2 were quite large. And that's where, you know, you could go and rent a horse and carriage, pre-cab era. So I thought that was interesting. And I thought, well, why am I not seeing more stables, at least if anything? And I think, you know, that's an opinion that I have. And so I've also seen the other garages on that street. Obviously, these are from the early automobile era, the classic one-car garage put out, you know, in nondescript place and things like that, or it's possibly a 2-car garage. But they weren't important outbuildings for a lot of the people who, when they got cars in the day, when they built them. So I wanted to share that. But also, too, I'd like to say that this proposed garage, at least as far as from Woodland Avenue, would be entirely visible from street view.
Right, there would be no planting.
I see
mean,
it
there may
on
be
foot,
planting
just
south or
to
north.
mention that.
Right.
But again, as you had shared, there are other garages on that street which are very similar.
Right, okay. Okay, so that, for starters, is the site plan. This is the context map with some of the surrounding properties. You guys are pretty intimately familiar with the North Wayne, the South Wayne houses. I will say that the Harbin's house is one that has a big gambrel roof with a ridge that is ridge line that's parallel to Walnut Avenue. So this is, as you might expect, all sorts of roofs, turrets, round ends, gambrels, gables, staggered, lots of a variety of window types and sizes. Fairly consistent materials in these houses, although they date from, not date from different periods. They've been updated or not over time. And then here's the property. This is a little gross, this line and stuff, but if you see the 201 in the upper left-hand corner, left-hand corner, those little 4 boxes, those are the little 4 garages that do exist kind of in that corner that were there from that early period. And the ones across Woodland Avenue, which is on the left-hand side, they are actually, I believe, about 17 feet from the curb line. So they're closer than the Hartman's garage currently is. And there is, it's not up to me to say what precedent is and what you all would agree with, but there is precedent for outbuildings that have side, I'll call it two streets on them, to have accessory buildings in a location like that. Or if you looked around at a lot of the contiguous properties, you'll often see a garage that is, right on the property line in the far back of a property. Now, granted, those you don't see, so they're not as dominant as the ones along the ones that have 2 street frontages. And then this is the existing house as we renovated it a few years back. So it is, again, it's hardy siding, cement fiber siding, painted gray. The windows, I think, are a Pella architectural series with simulated divided lights. The trim, for the most part, is white. Gutters and downspouts are pre-finished white aluminum. Full round, I'll show you that in just a second. The back whole piece is an addition with the little gable, and that's the stairs coming up. The front porch is quite lovely with those kind of little, eccentric Victorianish colonnettes sitting on top of the porch. The roof is a 40-year staggered fiberglass shingle, like a GAF timberline type shingle. And so that's the existing house. And then this is the proposed plan. So the house is the bottom right there, and then the garage, as I mentioned a second ago, is 26 feet by 25 feet, 2 car bays, a little extra room for bicycles and that type thing, and then this connected breezeway with these square columns that are along the backside of it. And then upstairs within the gambrel, there's a proposed little room up above there, what they want to use as an exercise room. These are the elevations. So the top 3 elevations are the elevation of the garage without the context of the existing house. The bottom elevation would be the west elevation, and this is what you would see along Woodland Avenue. So I'm looking at the side of the main house on the right-hand side. Those stairs that you saw in that photograph a second ago, that's these stairs here, which is kind of the back entrance to the house. It goes into the mudroom and so forth. And then our proposed garage is to the left of that. It's, in many ways, it's very similar to a house we did at corner of Beechtree and, oh God, I always get the streets mixed up, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, which won one of the Township Historic Awards, which is kind of a big gambrel on the main house, a smaller gambrel to be contextual, but not in any way to upstage the bigger house. It would be detailed in every single way, like the old, I'll show you that in just a second. 2 smallish garage doors. We're trying to separate the garage doors to put them more in the character of a carriage type house and not, like a 16 or 18 foot wide garage door that you see today. They're carriage style, so they still operate, they're overhead doors, but they would be wood. And then upstairs you can see some of the windows. There's a variety of window types on the facade of the main house. We're not showing you all the facades. But we've chosen to go with the 6/6 windows. There are also little leaded diamond light windows on the main house. There's some 6-light casement on the upper left of the gambrel there. We do have some these little shed dormers on the south and the north, which is the top left and the top right. We're proposing 6-light casements that exist in a very similar mode. You can kind of see the shed dormers on the main house coming off to the left and the right-hand side of the of the gambrel. And then this is a little model, a SketchUp model of the house. It's not reading particularly well. But again, the main house on the right, the connector piece that goes behind the garage, and then the garage itself with all those materials. I didn't mention the roof of the proposed roof for the garage would be a staggered fiberglass shingle. The proposed roof of the little connector piece would be standing seam metal. So it'd either be copper or a pre-finished aluminum product to look like an old standing seam roof. And those little columns, which you can kind of see there, and you see a little bit of here. As I mentioned before, we're proposing them to be square, very simple, for lack of a better word. I'll call them Doric in style, but they're not really classical. And we didn't want to use round Doric columns with entasis and all of that because that would put it more towards a classical expression, and this would be kind of a simpler, not necessarily Victorian, but a simple expression. And so that's what you're seeing there. And then finally, the proposed materials. The upper left is the type of garage door that we're proposing, which would be a wood garage door with probably vertical beadboard, windows in the top of that. We would not want to put any hardware on that. You know, often you'll see the carriage-style doors where they put the fake handle, you know, like an iron. It's not even iron, it's aluminum painted black, and fake strap hinges. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if people like that. I don't particularly like it. I'd rather just keep it in a very simple expression because you're not using the handle to open the door. You use your garage door opener. Top middle is the type of shingle that's on the house that we put on a few years back. It's like, again, a staggered 40-year shingle, like a GAF timberline. Upper right is the hardy plank siding. I think we have a 7-inch exposure. That would be a smooth hardy plank, not a wood grain hardy plank, which, again, if people like that, that's fine. I don't particularly like that because it's mimicking wood and it's not the real deal. And then the lower left, the gutters and downspouts. Again, we don't like to use corrugated gutter or downspouts. We don't like to use K-gutter, certainly in a historic context. And then the bottom right would be the type of windows. Again, if you know the Pella Architectural Series or Marvin's Ultimate type windows, that it would be clad on the outside, but with a 7/8 inch simulated divided light that would look like you know, a traditional window, and it would be wood on the inside. And I think that is the bulk of the presentation.
I'd like to make a comment that with the proposed new garage, you are taking elements of the main house into the design, especially a gambrel roof. And there are lots of windows, which I think is a very wonderful thing to see, considering the types of patterns with the windows with the other houses in that neighborhood.
Thanks. Well, I mean, architects, we use windows to make buildings friendly. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, if you think of buildings that don't have windows, they're prisons and power stations.
Well,
and
we have had cases where there was a proposed new garage, but no windows,
right.
for example. So I just wanted to mention that again, that it's wonderful to see all those windows on a
Well, thanks.
on the garage.
That's certainly intentional.
Could you tell me again the date?
1889-ish?
Yeah, anywhere from about 1885 to 1890.
Having a real battle at that point, right around 1900, everything changed. So this is very typical. My husband was teasing me because I used the word asymmetrical penetration. And Sarah, and she was here, we had a fit. That's not what Victorian period was all about. They wanted things.
Differentiation. Yep, absolutely.
It's impossible to satisfy those eras if you're dealing with this age house because
Yeah.
they have been centennial, all of them way patriotism. And so the architecture changed. Right around 1900, there was a dramatic change in architecture and went from loving everything Huntington
Back to Georgian and Federal, right?
George
All right. Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. It definitely does. Right. But as an architect, what we look at, I mean, other than function, which is super important, even though those houses have just a wide variety of window types and styles and sizes, there is some logic to it. So usually you would see the bigger double hung sash, like in a living room, or a pair of them together, where you need a lot of natural light. And you might have one with a leaded sash over a single light, you know, in a special corner room that might have been a nursery, and then you see a little, you know, like our little slit window we put at the top above those two double hungs. You know, that might be the kind of one you might see in a stair, and it might even march up the facade, as you know, Terry. You do have to choose some window, and we wanted to get a little variety, but also be something that would might have been done back in the day. Right. We did not, and I'll tell you why, Lisa. In my opinion, okay, and I'm just one person, well, even if you look at the State Department historic guidelines, which are pretty much the historic guidelines that rule most historic entities around the country, it says very specifically in there, don't mimic what is on the existing, and don't just, you know, there's places in this country, like Nantucket, for example, that has a historic district commission. God bless Nantucket, it's a beautiful place. And they literally, you can go through this book, and it says barge boards will be 8.5 inches, 6/6 windows, the proportion of each pane will be no greater than 2/3, et cetera, and that's fine. In our opinion, that it's almost like a 10-year-old could take that book and design an addition to a house in Nantucket. And these houses are so idiosyncratic, and well, I won't say you can kind of pick and choose, because that will sound like we didn't study it and think about it. We didn't want to replicate back there something that might then make the porch seem lesser and the garage more important. So we did replicate the roof, but it's a smaller roof. We did use some of the window elements. And the only other thing I would say, Lisa, about a variety in Sarah's opinion, and we don't know because she's not here, and I understand that because I've been before her too. Small buildings, it's hard to put a lot of window types on a small building. It's easy when it's a 4,500 square foot, you know, this crazy, you know, wonderful Victorian North Wayne house. I would be a little loath to do it too often on the others. And we do have 3 window types. So we have the 6/6s, we have the horizontally oriented casements up in the shed dormers, and then we have that little slit window on the top. So, I mean, and you don't have to agree with that. I'm just saying that's our thinking. Okay.
Also, too, if I remember correctly, with Nantucket and their historical districts there, you have a choice of 18 colors somewhere around there.
Well, the great irony of
So
that is, I don't need to go on a tirade because these gentlemen got to get up in a second. Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and New Bedford were, that architecture, that Greek Revival architecture that we all love and just some of the greatest stuff that ever came out of this country, was the most bombastic architecture on the planet in 1780. You know, there was no European on earth that would have done what they did on North Water Street in Edgartown, Massachusetts. And thank God Martha's Vineyard hasn't sort of codified that and said this is what you have to do in every jurisdiction. And that's what I'm afraid of, is you throw out the bad architecture, you throw out the crazy good architecture, and you get all this middle ground of kind of the same thing over and over. You know, and it's going to protect the public from bad buildings and McDonald's and all this. I don't need to go on a tirade about that. But it's funny that it's ironic that that's what they were back then, because, you know, those guys were brand new, nouveau riche whaling captains who were the, you know, tech gurus of the day in terms of money, and they wanted to build the craziest houses on earth. And here we are, you know, 250 years later, We're saying build just like it.
Well, thank you. Any further comments from the board?
I guess the only other thing, and it's just a comment, I don't think we're going anywhere with it, but so it sounded like you need to get down to a 14-foot setback, is that correct?
No, we're proposing a 14-foot setback from the curb. We're actually only 3 feet. Most of the houses on North and South Wayne, if you looked at the property lines, which Andy and them know, they're mostly pretty close. They're usually up around the sidewalks. They're only off the cartway, maybe 3 or 4 feet. The Hartman's property actually has, beside the front yard setback anomaly, which we have, 2 front yards, it's actually set back from Woodland quite a bit. So we're 14 feet from the cartway, and that's what we're proposing. And it's all at the zoning hearing board, whether they say, they will agree with us that that's acceptable.
So all I was going to say is, I imagine it's not acceptable, you'll have to make some modifications to your, because I was looking, it looks like there's a terrace not too far from the back of the roadway.
That's right, and that's existing. And obviously, if we have to make changes via the zoning hearing board, we'll be back before you guys. Unless you want to approve it, however, but I don't think you do.
The zoning board's more quasi-judicial. They have a stenographer and everything else.
Right.
Okay. Any further comments from the board? No? Any comments from the public? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Motion for certificate of appropriateness?
Motion to recommend.
Okay. We have a motion for certificate of appropriateness. Is there a second? We have a second. I also say yay. The motion carries unanimously, and the board recommends a certificate of appropriateness.
Right, thank you all.
Congratulations and thank you.
Thanks for what you do. Okay,
And have a great evening.
great, you too.
Okay. Is that mic turned on? Yeah, turned on.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Next point of business is Harb 2021-19, 319 St. David's Road. Garage door replacement with a new framed opening and new main door. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to give some basic background on this property. Radnor Township records say that it is a contributing property. It was built circa 1890. The architect was Price Brothers. The builders were Wendell and Smith. Radnor Historical Society's Historic Resource Survey has no information on this property. Delaware County, PA property records say the house was built in 1893. Its exterior walls are stucco. More so after reviewing a few maps on the Radnor Historical Society's website, in my opinion, there were probably no outbuildings when this house was built. Please introduce yourself and share your plans.
How are you doing? My name is Todd Majors. I'm the president of Devon Construction Management. This is Pat DeMund, my project manager and estimator. We're currently have permits that have been approved already. I think we just have to pick them up for the interior renovations. The clients are Dr. Michelle Marziano and Dr. George Gibbons. I believe they lived for, what, 3 years?
I believe so.
3 years. The house was completely renovated top to bottom, including the construction of this garage. I'm not sure how everything progressed, but the existing garage is all new frame construction. It's got OSB. It was all stucco and consistent with the main house itself. It does have a guest suite over the top of the garage as well. The Marzianos are in a kind of that floodplain area that they get some pretty heavy floods that come up probably within 1 foot within the garage area itself, I guess where they're located. And a couple of the problems that they have is there's only one door leaving the garage, a man door out the back. Which is not very usable for them, and there's one door going up to the the apartment over the top of the garage. And what they've done is they'd like to, and the two existing garage doors there, which are white aluminum metal doors, painted, are too small to actually put cars in the garage. I don't know the data how old the structure actually is, but it's relatively new. I think it was maybe within 3 or 4 years, but I'm not 100% sure, and no one could really tell us that. Basically what they're trying to do is create a man door on the front elevation, remove the two existing doors on the front elevation, the two existing garage doors, create a larger garage door with another man door that matches the additional door to the left-hand side that takes you up to the carriage house, is what they're trying to do here. So they've used it in the man door will match the one going to the apartment, and as well as the carriage doors, those will be white aluminum as well. It currently has, I have some photographs, I apologize because we just had to we shot them. I don't know if it's helpful to see what the house looks like.
To also mention too, when I saw this house from street view, the garage is partially visible from the street.
You can see it from the mouth of the driveway. It's pretty heavily landscaped, but if you are at the mouth of the driveway, you can see the garage straight to the back, definitely. And the only views, there's a creek in the back there, which a lot of it is below grade, I believe, as well. There's some underground, some sort of systems between the neighbors and whatnot, but they're towards the back of the yards. So like I said, the front elevation is really the only one that's visible currently. So they're trying to make it so the garage was usable, they could actually get their cars in, was the main idea. And then give a man door to be able to come in and out the front instead of having to go around the back of the garage. The garage door opening is, the new proposed garage door would be 13 feet wide. They try to pick more of say with that carriage style.
And the 13-foot wide new door, that's the same as the existing door that's on there?
Yeah, basically you have two smaller doors that I don't even know if they're 7 foot, to be honest
Okay,
with
so
you.
this is gonna
They're
be
pretty
wide.
narrow, and
Okay.
there's a small strip of stucco between them. So once they said they can't even get the cars in. They really have to grease the sides up to kind of slide the cars in. So it's basically unusable, which is, they're both very busy doctors, and they'd like to be able to keep their cars inside, but thus far it's been impossible.
So the front of the garage, as far as the door, is just going to be one door?
Yeah, it'd be one door with a man door, and then the existing man door takes you upstairs to the apartment above. So they're adding the man door to the right of the existing man door, which they'll both match, and then adding, basically remove the little strip of stucco between, reframe everything on the inside to be able to accommodate this new larger door, which they'll be able to get their cars in easier.
Yeah, it seems like it's an adaptation, in my opinion, for a modern need. So, okay, anything else you'd like to?
No, it's pretty straightforward. We're matching the stucco, any patching we have to do, everything's going to be exactly the same. The colors, everything's white as far as the trim and the doors go. Those will remain exactly the same as well. So we're not changing any colors. There's nothing changing on the I think it's a weathered wood Tamco shingle that's on the existing house. We're not touching anything. It's just that front elevation. Remove the two doors, cut the opening for the man door, reframe everything for the larger door, and then patch the stucco, which is kind of a sand finish that matches the main existing house, which was also completely renovated and is on the exterior side as well. Oh, I'm sorry.
In a way, you can do that.
Well, you never know. I could always run at the flagpole. But that's pretty much the gist. It's relatively simple. Our other project that we already have a permit approved for, we're going to be getting started hopefully towards the beginning of November. It's just the whole entire master suite, so there's no exterior work that had to be submitted as far as that one goes. We're staying within the box on the main renovation of the house.
I think the most important consideration is
Yeah, I'm not really sure, and they don't know either if there was another structure there at one time, if there was a smaller carriage house or what have you. They really didn't have any background on it, other than I believe they bought it directly from the builder, is my understanding.
On the maps that I looked at, around the time this house was built, there were no outbuildings. So,
What I'm saying.
yeah,
It was later.
yeah. So if there was something back there, maybe automobile error, but I couldn't find anything from old maps. Okay. Do we have any further comments from the board? No? Okay. Do we have a motion?
You want which one? I'll recommend the certificate of appropriateness, which has to be the most ridiculous term known to man, but however, that is what we are told to say, so I should do it.
Second? Okay. We have a motion for a certificate of appropriateness, and we have a second. I also say yay, and the board recommends a certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for presenting to us today.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is. I serve on the I'm the chairman of West Pikeland Harb and Historical Commission, so I
Well, we have two
appreciate-
openings. If you know anybody that lives in Radnor Township that might have interest, please send them our way.
I would, I might consider that. I used to live in West Pikeland, but I live in Malvern now, and I really don't. We don't hear that many proposals coming in anymore. Literally, it's been almost 18 months since I've had a historical commission or Harb meeting.
Lucky
so-
you.
Yeah. Well, for a while it was like two. I had to you have a Harb and the
During
historical
the
commission all in the same
pandemic,
week.
our business here on our board like tripled.
We haven't it's been bizarre that we haven't had too many submissions. Now, some are a little bit simpler, which they'll call me and the building official will let me kind of make some judgment calls on it. I think we've had more come up in the last 18 months of people that go and put new roofs on their house without Harb or historic commission approval. So they'll have to come in and ask for forgiveness after that. Fortunately, it's been pretty good because they've done the right thing. But those actually, the only last two hearings that we've had has just been people have already done the work. They have to come in and ask them for forgiveness. So that's kind of where we ended up.
As far as our Harb goes, during the pandemic, our cases have like tripled.
Really?
Yeah, one year we had like 20 cases in 1 year.
West Pikeland Township's pretty quiet. I mean, the majority of the applications coming in are really for historic Yellow Springs for the most part, and they haven't had any funds to really do anything because they've been pretty much shut down until recently through COVID. So it's been interesting. It's just been actually bizarre, but we kind of go through waves, I think, and I expect it. We actually started to get there's some applications starting to come in, which is great because I kind of miss it. I miss everybody. I haven't seen anybody in almost 18 months, so. Yeah, well, I definitely consider it. Is it an application process? You have to live in Radnor? Well, you'll have to wait then. Well, thank you. But if I know anybody that's in the area, the architects that we work for all the major historical architects. We pretty much that's our meat and potatoes of our business. In fact, everything we have now and already booked all the way through next year is all historical. So we're all really happy because we love historical
hear.
resources. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and everything.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, before we adjourn, unless there's any old or new business? No? Okay. Before we adjourn, I would like to mention that the next Harb meeting is scheduled for November 3rd, 2021 at 9:30 p.m. Applications for the November 3rd, 2021 meeting must be submitted on or before October 19, 2021. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
I'd like to remind you that
We are adjourned, everyone.